On today's show, the Cleveland Cavaliers take down the Orlando Magic. We'll talk all about that game, which didn't feature a great game from Donovan Mitchell. Thanks for making Locked On Cavs your first listen every day. Remember, we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. That's BetOnline. That's where the game starts.
You are Locked On Cavs, your daily Cleveland Cavaliers podcast.
All right, the music you heard on the way in is from our friends at Asteroido. Check them out on Apple Music or Spotify. I'm Chris Manning. I cover the Cavs and NBA at large for places like Diamond UPROXX and SB Nation's Fear the Sword. That man is Evan Dammarell. He is at Fear the Sword and right Down Euclid. Today's show, we're going to talk about Cavs Magic. Cleveland wins this game to improve to 3-1 this season. It's a 103-92 win. Changing the starting lineup. We'll give out our game awards, and we'll do some miscellaneous notes. Evan, there are, I think, two big takeaways from this game, and I think we should just start with the fact that they won this game, which we'll talk about in awards as well, but they win this game without Donovan Mitchell scoring everything and being, a 30-plus point scorer like he's been the first couple games. This was not a particularly good Donovan Mitchell game. Obviously, Darius Garland still out with that eye issue, had sunglasses on in the arena again. But this was not a good Mitchell game, and yet the Cavs win by 11. Yes, the Magic are winless and young and not particularly good at this moment in time, but an 11-point win where your best offensive player, your best player, your offensive engine is 5 of 19 from the field and 1 of 7 from 3 for 14 points is a positive in my book if I'm the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Yeah, I agree. It's just Donovan Mitchell, it looked like he was a little tapped out. Maybe it's just he doesn't have his whole season legs underneath him quite yet. Like 5 of 19, 1 of 7 from 3. And another notable is Cedi Osman is 1 of 5 from 3 in this game. Like the Cavs leaned heavily on their role players and their two big men, which is a way they win this game. And like Caris LeVert had 10, Cedi Osman had 14, Jarrett Allen had 18, Dean Wade had 12, and Evan Mobley is the biggest star here, had 22. These are just kind of the games you're going to have sometimes. This is a scrappy Orlando squad. We talked about this a little bit with Paolo Banchero kind of having a propensity to get to the free throw line and Franz Wagner being just really intriguing, and the Magic just having a lot of intriguing young players all throughout their roster. It is what it is, and I think if there's a positive to take away from this, it's one, like you said, that Donovan Mitchell not being completely on as an offensive just dynamo for the Cavs, and them winning despite that. But more than anything, like Evan Mobley kind of looked a little bit more like himself tonight too. Like he's still probably leveling up a little bit. JB Bickerstaff did say post game that right now this is kind of his preseason where he's one getting used to playing with Donovan Mitchell and one getting back into like proper game shape and getting his legs underneath him and kind of finding the comfortable spots, especially after dealing with what was likely a pretty heavy ankle sprain because he was out for almost the entirety of the preseason. So that's like the positive here is maybe you find some positive momentum in Evan Mobley where, especially in the second half, he was a dominant player on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, we're specifically in segment 3. I at least want to talk about his offense because I found the way they used him, and I found the way he attacked to be really interesting. But this was like definitely Evan Mobley's best offensive game of the season. Definitely his most just efficient and competent offensive game of the year. It's only 3 assists, 3 turnovers. Still a couple turnovers here and there, but scoring wise, like one of the more interesting Evan Mobley scoring games I think we've seen, and that helps you. I mean, to run through the points in this game, Jarrett Allen had 18 points to go with 16 boards, 7 offensive rebounds included in that. Kevin Love only has 4, so this tells you like you get 14 from Osman, you get 10 from LeVert, you get 18 from Allen, you get 12 from Dean Wade all on threes, you get 22 from Evan Mobley on 9 of 15 shooting, 4-6 from the free throw line for Mobley as well. So like you got 7 points from Howell Neto. So like you got stuff from everybody else aside from Donovan Mitchell and it was enough. And the other part, Evan, one of the guys I mentioned, Dean Wade, ends up starting this game. This is a change in the starting lineup. Isaac Okoro goes out. Okoro ends up only playing 11 minutes and 29 seconds in this game. That is less than Neto by about 2 minutes. Neto plays in the fourth. Okoro does not. Wade plays almost 30 minutes in this game, 4-7 from the field, all from three. Had 3 rebounds as well. I thought played pretty well. I like the look of him in the starting lineup from a function standpoint a lot better.
Yeah.
It would not surprise me if this is what we see, Friday in Boston, Sunday against the Knicks, and kind of maybe going forward. I would not be surprised.
I would not be surprised either, especially because I had tweeted this, and it's something we had touched on a little bit. Like, you could see the Cavs are ripping a lot of pages out of what made Donovan Mitchell click in Utah, and it's a lot of spread pick and roll, having shooters around him. And if Isaac Okoro just isn't on offensively, and maybe you need to put him back in that box a little bit until he can kind of maybe sort things out, whether it's through practice or just kind of finding momentum off the bench or something like that. That's just how you have to go about it, because Dean Wade at least provides you size. He doesn't have the lateral quickness of Okoro, but he does provide you three-point shooting, and like you said, all 4 of his makes tonight were from beyond the arc, and that's what you need in that starting lineup in order to allow 1, 2 7-footers to function, and 2, for Donovan Mitchell to really work as a passer. Like, Mitchell was whipping the ball around the perimeter. Like, he had a good look to Cedi Osman in the first half. Dean Wade benefited from it as well. Like, there's a lot of things the Cavs positively put together with this one, and maybe it's a similar situation to... Maybe Dean Wade goes back to the bench when Darius Garland comes back. Maybe you start to lessen Okoro's minutes as well, because Dean Wade, like Cedi Osman, has played well in those spot minutes when called upon, and you should reward the players that are going to provide you something on offense and also are respectable on defense. And I'm not saying Osman's great defensively, but Kevin Love, just his shot wasn't there tonight, so you lean more on Dean Wade in that regard too. So there's ways for it to make sense, but yeah, let's say Garland doesn't play Friday in Boston. I would not be surprised if it's the same starting 5, and then if he doesn't play against New York, it's probably the same starting 5 again. But if, let's say, Garland is back in either of those games, you bump Dean Wade out of the starting lineup, but you have him probably being like your 7th or 8th man in the rotation right now.
They may not do this yet, but I think there's even just a case to start him in some ways. Just like some of what he does in this game to me is why you make the case that he starts, because he takes threes. He provides you spacing.
So even over Karis LeVert, you say?
Yeah. I think there's a case. I think there's a not obviously your Garland's going to get his starting spot back, provided that he can his eyes functioning.
See.
Yeah. If Wade is going to shoot threes and compete on defense, I thought against Paolo Banchero in this game, Okoro is just smaller, so that's part of this. But Okoro had a really hard time with Banchero. Banchero just kind of was bigger than him and got his shots off and was able to drive. Wade still had moments where Banchero was able to, because Paolo looks really, really intriguing, but Wade was able to physically match him and put up size. And if you're looking, okay, you're playing the Celtics on Friday, and you're saying, I don't trust any of these guys to lock down Tatum, who's playing at an MVP level right now, but maybe Dean Wade, physically and size-wise, you can feel better about it, and he's going to shoot, and he's going to attack closeouts. He's just doing more for you in that way.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I think Dean Wade does give you a little bit more now. He's just played really well in hitting the minutes he has gotten for and with the Cavs up to this point. So, yeah, maybe it is something you explore. Maybe you kind of extrapolate it further. You give Dean Wade more minutes next to Garland and Mitchell. Maybe you find lineups where you run Garland, Mitchell, Mobley, and Allen next to him. And if you find more success than you do with Karis LeVert, yeah, you can make a justifiable case for it. It's just, I think maybe you don't pull the plug quite yet. Maybe you just tinker with it, obviously, see what the data tells you. Because, again, we're only 4 games into the season, so we don't have the biggest sample size when it comes to a lot of this lineup data, but just it's becoming increasingly obvious. Isaac Okoro just is a very clunky fit on the offensive side of the ball for the Cavs, and there were times he played defense well when it was against Paolo Banchero, but the Magic are just a bigger team overall, and kind of just provide some odd matchups for Okoro to have to defend when he was out on the floor. Against Terrence Ross, he was not bad. Against Cole Anthony, he defended a lot better, but when you put some of the bigger guys on him, it just became a little bit tougher for him to keep in space. And like you said, Dean Wade and even Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen to an extent, they're bigger bodies, but they're also comfortable at times having to defend in isolation and kind of embrace the challenge of having to defend a guy in space.
Yes. All right. After the break, we're going to come back. We're going to give out some game awards headlined as a little tease by a guy we haven't really touched on yet. but who I think definitely was the best player for the Cleveland Cavaliers in this game. But first, Evan is going to tell everyone about our friends at PrizePicks.
Today's episode of Locked On Cavs is brought to you by PrizePicks. To play, pick 2 to 5 players, and if they could score more or less than your PrizePicks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on any entry. No competing against other people, it's just you versus the projections available. PrizePicks offers projections on any sport you watch. This includes NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, PGA, college football, men's college basketball, women's college basketball, soccer, WNBA, esports, NASCAR, tennis, MMA, boxing, disc golf, Eurobasket, cricket, and so much more. Entries can be made in 60 seconds or less. It's that easy. They offer safe and fast withdrawals, and they're currently operational in over 30 states and the great nation of Canada. Download the PrizePicks app or go to prizepicks.com to sign up and play daily fantasy sports. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with the promo code LOCKEDON. If you deposit $100, PrizePicks will give you $100. If you deposit $50, PrizePicks will give you $50. So, don't forget to enter the promo code LOCKEDON at sign up for an instant deposit and match up to 100 smackaroonies.
Hey, Evan, what's that promo code?
Locked On.
That's right, all one word. All right, we're back here on the Locked On Cavs podcast. I'm Chris Manning.
A little disappointed you didn't say Locked On in the cadence from the ad read there, but
we are back
alas.
on Locked On Cavs. Let's do some game awards. Evan, we have the same MVP. It's Jarrett Allen. Why don't you talk about how good Jarrett Allen was against the Orlando Magic?
He was straight up dominant in the third quarter. He said post game that when he had that 5-second violation, it kind of fired him up to play a little bit better, and he started clapping and just like yelling out in front of everyone and just kind of trying to get things going. And he really just brought the oomph. He had that sick dunk on Bol at one point, and you saw him kind of pointing, talking trash to the Magic bench on the way back because apparently the Magic were just doing a lot of talking all night long. And Jarrett Allen kind of is a player, JB Bickerstaff said, that leads by example. And he doesn't really do a lot of talking, lets his game do the talking for him. And I think Allen just kind of went on a hot streak, and then the Cavs kind of followed suit, and they really wreaked havoc on the interior. Like, I'm going to look at the third quarter numbers as we talk right now, but yeah, they were 9 of 23 from the floor, but 1 of 11 from the three-point line. So most of their damage came on the interior, and it mostly came from Evan Mobley and Jarrett Allen in this quarter. So like the Cavs kind of found a little bit of their identity. A lot of the scrap came on the defensive side of the ball. A lot of it did come from, at least in the fourth quarter, Hall Neto locking up the Magic for a 24-second shot clock violation. But the Cavs played well, and Jarrett Allen was the catalyst for them kind of turning things around in the second half and asserting their will at times on the Magic.
He was just like physically, Wendell Carter Jr. is turned into like a good player.
Oh, I feel validated that he's a good player because I was high on Wendell Carter Jr. coming out of Duke.
Jarrett Allen kicked his butt.
Oh, for sure.
Just straight up kicked Wendell Carter Jr.'s butt in this game. When he had, you mentioned the Bol dunk. Bol like had nothing for Jarrett Allen, just no resistance there. And you could even with Paolo Banchero, who had like a very good game, the times that he was most tentative to attack and go do stuff in this game was when they would switch Jarrett Allen on him. Jarrett Allen was kind of the connecting force on both ends of the floor. I mean, he has in this game, Evan, he has 7 offensive rebounds. Like he's just like, and that's not like for him to have 7 of Cleveland's 12 offensive rebounds. The Cavs are able to get 19 second chance points in this game, in large part, I believe, due to Jarrett Allen's work on that end of the floor. He was just dominant. He was dominant. We talked a lot last year about how he got better. He threw a pass in this game to Caris LeVert-Cutting and then LeVert, I believe, feed to Mobley. I think Jarrett Allen has it's early on that stuff, but they're throwing in some stuff where he's passing and looking to do some stuff over the top of defenses from the elbow. I think we've generally seen improvement from him the last year and into this year, and that's very intriguing for where he is and where he's going. Okay.
Real quick on Allen, what
yes.
impressed me most with the aggressiveness he played with in the third quarter is he played through a lot of foul trouble too. Like he finished the game with 5 fouls, but like he didn't let that deter him or kind of set the tone. And in terms of the playmaking stuff, it's something I've been taking notice on. I might be writing about it just because there's a lot of big-to-big passing the Cavs are doing now, and yeah, I think Allen's the catalyst for a lot of this too. But let's talk about stats and plays in the night.
So stat of the night for me is pretty simple. Donovan Mitchell is 5 of 19 from the field. He's 1 of 7 from 3, and the Cavs won. If you had told me coming into this game that Donovan Mitchell, who's been scored 30 points in the first 3 games of the year and was just bonkers efficient and deadly from the field in these games, would have that kind of night and the Cavs would win by 11 points and all of that, I would have called baloney. I would have been very unsure that would have happened, and yet they did it. And just that's it. Donovan Mitchell, in a game the Cavs won without Darius Garland, was 5 of 19 from the field, and they won. That's it to me.
Yeah, no, it is a crazy stat because he was just such an offensive everything for the Cavs leading up to this game, and just like in the first 3 games of the season that, and he even said it after the win over the Wizards, like he's going to have a bad night, and when that does happen, he shared it with me many moons ago that they're going to have to like kind of lean on their defense a little bit to get them the win, and this is an ugly game, especially just when watching Mitchell and LeVert to an extent play, so getting production elsewhere is a good thing, and I think Mitchell was still a factor of those 8 assists. I think that's the key part of it. Like, I didn't track the numbers tonight of like how many points he actually scored, but he did have an impact in other ways when the shot just wasn't falling for him.
Yes. Evan, your stat of the night is what?
Just in the first half, Evan Mobley only had 3 shot attempts total. He was 2 of 3 from the floor, and Danny Cunningham asked JB about this a couple days ago, and it's just kind of been like a thing that people are focusing on. It's just like Mobley isn't really shooting the ball much, and he had single-digit shot attempts against the win over the Wizards the other night, and you noticed it at first in the first half. He still looked a little tentative. He looked a little passive out there at times in offense. There was an opportunity where he was right out on the perimeter, and instead of taking the three-pointer, he did a pump fake, drove to the basket, and then ended up just kicking it out to Donovan Mitchell to reset the offense instead. And you're just like, man, I wish he kind of would just rip it sometimes. But in the second half, it flipped the script completely. He ended up finishing the second half 7 of 12 from the floor, which is what you want to see, 3 or 4 from the free throw line, 17 points, and you saw him being much more vocal out there. You saw him kind of finding his confidence a little bit. Like, you saw him calling and demanding the ball when he was in the low post against Franz Wagner, and then you'd see the Magic throw a double team at him, and he'd still use his just fluidity as a man that big to still find creative ways to get shots at the basket. And even then, he was still making the right hockey assist and passes too. Like, there's ways Evan Mobley can be effective when he's not scoring the ball, but you need him to kind of level up a little bit and feel comfortable asking for the ball. And it depends on how you feel about Donovan Mitchell or Darius Garland. Like, Evan Mobley is on the trajectory to become the Cavs' best player eventually. And in order for him to kind of get to that point, you need him to be scoring the ball more and feeling more comfortable with it in the flow of the offense. And you saw more of that in the second half. So, like, at first it was a not great stat, and then the second half he just completely flipped the script and just became a lot more dominant, especially in that third quarter.
Yes. All right. Let's go to more on Evan Mobley in segment 3. That's what they call a tease. Play of the night for me. 3:52 in the first quarter. Caris LeVert attacks, gets into the defender's chest. J.D. Osman cuts from the corner because Paolo Banchero is just not paying attention to him in the corner. He slips in, scores, bam. Caris LeVert did not have another good shooting game. He's still kind of struggling in that department. But Evan, I found that he was very aggressive, was making good passes, and Caris LeVert, who is attacking, who's getting downhill, who's at least it's not passing guys open, but he's providing an outlet for guys to cut into and give them looks to. It's made him, I think, a very useful, good player. And this was just offense kind of was slow to start. They needed something. He attacked. Osman reads it well. It was really, really nice. Just kind of improvisational basketball there.
No, it was a good play. It was good improvisational basketball. Jetty's just kind of playing really well. I think he's finding his groove, and it's good to see. But I have a regular actual in-game play of the night. It was just Donovan Mitchell's rebound that never was that led to a Jarrett Allen dunk. It's just, I asked Jarrett about this. I'm like, have you ever seen a guy that small, like, just grab a board like that? Like, he one-handed, like, caught that with one arm, then whipped it behind his back to Allen, who was cutting. Like, it's cool to see plays like that. You wish it was, or at least the basket counted, because that would have been the play of the night. I mean, the Mitchell dunk itself was also a hype play as well, but it's cool to see Mitchell just, like, show how multifaceted he is. And That's my play of the night, even though it doesn't count. But my pre-play of the night is Robin Lopez appears to be making good with Sir Cece and Moondog because he shook their hands before the game. So positive direction stuff, positivity throughout the locker room.
Donovan Mitchell's a freak athlete.
Yeah, I liked how Jared Allen described him as he's built down there, and he's like, I mean, in the paint. Like, I don't know. So
Down there, okay, Jarrett. The leap he made for that rebound was just like his body contorted. The dunk he had in this game was just like he just pops. Like he is. I think I knew this because obviously I think we'd seen him play and watch tape on him and stuff, but like it has popped a lot more. Like maybe just because you're watching him day in and day out, it just pops that he is a very, very explosive dude. I had something in my notes that I'll pull up maybe on Friday's show that I was just like, even just like in this small little thing, this guy just kind of explodes. Okay, one more break. We're gonna come back. We're gonna talk about a couple small things. We're gonna start by talking about Evan Mobley, and I have a little Isaac Okoro scheme nugget for this one as well. All right, last segment on Locked On Cavs. All right, let's talk about Evan Mobley, in his offensive game, because I found the way they were putting him in spots at the free throw line, on the block against wings, facing him up, to just be very smart. Like instead of allowing him to like load up in a post-up situation where like he might have a strength issue, or it's like not really a good offensive strategy just to have him like stick his butt into a guy and back him down and as no one else is moving. They're letting Evan Mobley be dynamic. Like he had a face-up bucket on Bol Bol in this game where he just takes one step and he gets to the basket. He is so much more capable when they're empowering him to do stuff like that, when he just gets to make one move and go, gets to use his length, gets to use his dribble. There are still little things that I think are clearly in progress. I think his handle still looks really, really loose. That's something we talked about in the lead up to the season. It was just like his handle in limiting turnovers that way is going to add value to him on offense. But the positions they put him in this game are exactly, I think, what you want for Mobley and what he is on the offensive end right now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I'm surprised he didn't note the jumper he had and the mid-range jumper he had in the second half.
Good. We were good. The step back yet in the mid-range step back, yeah.
Crazy. That was nice, and like you said, you're seeing more of Evan Mobley becoming more comfortable, and the Cavs are just kind of empowering him to say like, okay, let's do one, what you're comfortable with, but two, like the Cavs are encouraging him to just do a couple of these things that maybe you just don't see from a conventional big man or a guy who's in his sophomore season. But I absolutely agree. The handle's still pretty loose. He finished the night with, I believe, 3 turnovers, but I'll confirm it right now.
Yeah, 3 turnovers, three turnovers, 3 assists.
Okay, so yeah, there we go. So there's the issue in itself. Like, you wanted to tighten that up a little bit, because if it's a big man who's handling the rock a lot and it's a guy who wants to initiate the offense, like my original play of the night was Evan Mobley more or less throwing a full court pass to a streaking Kevin Love who got a bunny at the rim. Like, Mobley has just a lot of interesting tools in his toolkit that just makes him a very multifaceted and fascinating player to kind of dissect and analyze. It's just, there's still a couple baby steps he's got to take to get there. And I think the tightening of the handle is just, I didn't expect that to be kind of a refined thing, but it's something that definitely can be worked on. And I think as time goes on, something that's going to be worth observing, especially if the Cavs want to lean more on him as like an offensive hub or even an initiator.
I mean, I think the point you brought up about the passes and that to Kevin Love was exactly right, because this was him getting a rebound and pushing and going. And it wasn't, I'm going to wait, I'm going to make it the half court. It's not necessarily like the half court passing. It is, he's making a read and he's going and he's like opening things up and he has the vision for this stuff. And it's about, I think, it all coming together, but it's also in those moments he can take better advantage of it because it's in space. And I was thinking about him as like an offensive guy, and in terms of like we've talked about how like if he can add strength and he can maybe start bowling in from the 3-point line. I almost wonder if like the baby step to getting there is like the stuff at the free throw line, stuff at the elbow, stuff on the baseline.
The stuff for him bowling his way into the basket more is not being so adverse to contact when setting a screen.
Yeah, that's still
it's mystifying to me, because I watched Jared Allen set a screen. It's like, yeah, that's pretty firm. Evan Mobley is just like tap and he slips.
Well, like the time tonight, he just kind of stood there, like he was just like a foul pole, just like standing there. Here's a shot chart from this game, by the way. If you're on YouTube, you can see this, but like he took the 2 shots that he made, one just inside the free throw and one from the baseline. Look where all those other green dots are, at the rim. Mm-hmm. That is a recipe for success for Evan Mobley, and it was all him. It was a lot of him getting the ball, making one dribble, making one move, and going.
Well, one of those looks too was also like a really good lob pass. Not a lob pass. It was more of just like a floater pass from Donovan Mitchell at the top of the free throw line, and just like it synced up nicely. And the thing is the Magic respected Donovan Mitchell, especially on the perimeter, and guys on the interior like a la Mobley and Allen benefited from that. Like I asked Jarrett yesterday or today about it, like, hey, are you noticing like maybe easier looks with the spacing kind of happening? Because like defenses are going to have to be honest with how hot you guys are for the perimeter, and I think maybe you saw a bit of the inverse where the Magic were playing up a little bit, they're playing a little bit more aggressively, and that's a nice way to kind of like, one, find a balance on offense, but two, get that familiarity between Mitchell and Mobley too.
Mitchell and Mobley plus three dudes who could shoot would be like an incredibly fun look. I don't think they have the personnel right now to fully pull that off and have it make sense defensively.
Defensively, no, because you could run a lineup of like Mitchell, Osman, Wade, Love, and Mobley.
But Evan Mobley's getting run ragged defensively in those situations. It would be like, can you just solve everything for us? Thanks, bud. Like this is where like they could use a wing who can shoot it, which like every team needs, but like a KCP type would make sense like there, right? Like that's the kind of thing you're looking for. Speaking of wings, but not what you can't shoot. There was a play in this game, Evan. 10 minutes left in the second quarter. Kevin Love gets a post up. He gets stripped. Banchero collapses on him and sags, and it pressures him. Magic get points on a fast break. They miss the initial shot, but get a very easy offensive rebound and score. All this happened because Paolo Banchero basically just didn't have to defend Isaac Okoro like 4 feet away. Teams just continually do not care what Isaac Okoro is doing on offense, and this is like, we knew this was a problem.
It's worrisome.
It's not great. It's not great.
It is definitely not great. It's the same issue you saw against very good defensive teams last year, like Boston or like Golden State, where teams will be very clever and either hide their worst defender on Isaac Okoro and then allow their best defender, or they put their best defender on him and just say, okay, Isaac, I'm going to wall you off from getting into the paint or slashing. Go ahead and float on the perimeter because you aren't going to do anything. And unfortunately, it's more of the same right now. And I think, again, you could talk about the 45-degree shot. And I was on the waiting for next year's Cavs cast, and I kind of talked about this. It felt like a bit of a kiss of death because he has those 2 really good preseason games and then the good Chris Fedor feature on like the shot mechanics and the stuff he worked on the offseason and the degrees of the angles of his shots and everything. It's just like set Isaac Okoro up for success and it ended up just crumbling out from underneath him. And he's just still the same guy again. Like we can talk about, and Jake put in a bell noise, what Isaac Okoro can be, ding. But it just right now, the Cavs just don't have the runway to let him do it, and when he's out there, he's just an offensive liability unless like he just facilitates and like functions from the dunker spot or something. I don't know. Like there's ways you can maybe do it, but it's just like I don't know if the Cavs really have the bandwidth to figure that out on top of everything else right now.
It's a long season. Maybe he figures it out. But not a very auspicious start for Isaac Okoro. Okay,
he could probably, maybe he figures it out with another team is what I was gonna say. But
yeah, we'll
put a pin in that for the deadline.
I will. My brain cannot handle the only team I can think about blowing up right now is the Nets because it's just the vibes there are insane. And every other team, I'm just like, let's let them exist.
The clip of Kyrie yelling at Ben Simmons to shoot it, and then ESPN showing the big 3 graphic with Kyrie, KD, and Ben. It's just so funny.
Yeah, it's tough stuff there. And also the Lakers they're playing Cavs Summer League legend Matt Ryan just hurt the 4th quarter. Like these teams are down bad.
Also, Indianapolis Colts 3rd-string quarterback Matt Ryan.
Yes. Evan, let's just quickly mention that this is Howell Neto's best game. 4-4 from the line, hit a corner 3. It doesn't have any assists or anything, but like I thought was pretty competent in his almost 14 minutes of play.
Yeah, he was very functional because Donovan Mitchell's shot just wasn't falling. Maybe this is JB kind of staggering Mitchell's minutes a little bit because he played him 40 minutes the other night against Washington. And you just lean on Hollow Neto a little bit more. And Neto played well in the minutes, like you said, like he did. He fills a similar void to like Matthew Dellavedova, just maybe without the way less defensive intensity compared to Delly. And there's a bit more shooting upside there. But like a guy you could throw out there for 10, 15 minutes a night, he's not going to do anything to wreck what you have going on out there. Then you can just kind of keep going on with your star players getting some opportunities to rest. And that one defensive possession he had is probably one of the best defensive plays of the night, at least in terms of just like, and not at the rim. Like Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley had some pretty good blocks and shot contests too, but like Neto had probably the best like overall defensive possession of the night.
Yes. All right. Cavs win 103-92, improved to 3-1 on the season, 2-0 undefeated at home. They were 8.5-point favorites in this game, so they did cover if you're interested in that. Next up, the Boston Celtics on Friday. Yes, on Friday. But they did, Evan. They did. That's what matters.
I thought the Magic just were sabotaging at first, so they just kept fouling. I'm like, they don't want the Cavs to cover. That's legendary. On Friday, Cavs will get Cavs Celtics, which is certainly the best team the Cavs has played all year to date. So that will be a very interesting game. We'll have our Friday show actually will be a crossover with Locked on Celtics. Is John Corrales. These two teams will play each other Friday and then next Wednesday in Cleveland. So that'll be fun. No Grant Williams for the Celtics on Friday. I don't think Darius Garland will play, but we will see if that changes. He was seen in some goggles at the practice facility. Apparently still getting fitted for him, so
who knows?
And the expectation is he will wear them when he returns to the floor until his eye is completely healed.
Love that. All right, thanks again for making us Locked On Cavs your first listen every single day. This episode was produced by Jake Stevens. For your next listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast, the biggest stories of the day, plus instant reactions, big game recaps, and the take of the day. That's available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again to Jake Stevens again for producing. Thanks again to you, our listeners, for subscribing. Please rate and review the show on your podcast platform of choice and subscribe. Hit the notification bell on YouTube if you have not already. I'm Chris. That's Evan. I'll be back tomorrow with John Corrales, everyone. Be well. It's going to be a fun weekend with Celtics Cavs.